All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to All Outdoors with Muck Simons, and of course, Darren Wandy, my partner in crime here. Tonight, we have an amazing guest that we've wanted to have on the program for a very long time. She's a three-time champion of the IBO Triple Crown, as well as 2019 IBO World Champion, and basically an all-around archery pro in Canada and the United States. We have Erin McGladdery from Saskatchewan, Canadian archer, um, showing very well in the United States with the with on the pro circuit. So, Erin, thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about Erin and her accomplishments, but we're going to talk about getting, how you got started, how we can get more people into archery and stuff like that. So thanks, Erin. Darren, you got anything to start with right away out of the gate for?
If you ever seen Erin shoot, she's pretty amazing. I know that there's lots of talk about her abilities, and you know what, Erin, we really thank you for coming on tonight. And I got some questions in regards to just some females getting into archery and maybe some young girls how they can get started. So we're looking forward to this talk tonight.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks you guys for having me. It's nice to be here.
So Erin, for those of the people out here that are going to be watching this that maybe don't know of you, I mean, they must have been living under a rock if they don't know who Erin McGladdery is. But give us a little bit about who you are, what you got going on. I know right now with just everybody else in this world, COVID has got everything to a grinding halt. But just kind of give us some background about what you've been doing and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, haven't been doing a whole lot lately, but this 2020 would have been my fourth year shooting in the US. So yeah, pretty sad about none of it happening. And I'm sure everybody's the same, sitting at home wishing we could all go shoot anywhere, any tournament, any type. But yeah, so just kind of, I shot my hunting bow quite a bit this fall to sort of just stay in the groove of shooting a bow, and otherwise taking a little break from it. But yeah, so 2021 would be my third year with Matthew, so my fifth year of shooting pro. So I guess we'll see what happens as we go forward here, but I won't hold my breath for any crazy international travel quite yet.
How did you get into archery, Erin?
So I started bow hunting when I was, I think, 14. My older brother and his buddies had bows, and finally I saved up some money and I bought a Champion Badger, was my first bow. And I remember just trying so hard to get to 40 pounds so I could be legal and go hunting. So we used to just go and shoot and shoot and shoot into our, I lived on a farm, so we had round bales, and we would just shoot at these bales till we lost most of our arrows, and then we would go in and try again the next time we got new arrows. So that's kind of how it started. And I hunted a lot and not very well with my bow for the first while. And then life went on. I went on to university and played other sports and didn't do any archery at all for a while. And then I came back, and during university, I got injured, actually. I injured my back. And I wasn't really able to do a lot of movement for quite a while, but I wanted to compete in something. So I took my hunting bow. By that time, I'd upgraded. Took my hunting bow to some local 3Ds, shot those for a year and a half, and then decided that's what I wanted to do. So I sold my business that I had at the time and just decided I was going to go to the US and start shooting, and went straight into the pro class, because really you just have to go and sign up and say, hey, I'm going to shoot the pro class, and that's all there is to it. So yeah.
Every once in a while, Erin, I get a phone call from a parent, asking about just getting started with either their son, their daughter, maybe themselves getting started into archery. How much do I spend? You just said you started with, one of those, maybe a lower caliber type bow. What's some advice for a parent or somebody who's listening to this program about getting started? Is it just a matter of picking something up and start shooting? What would you advise?
Well, the nice thing now is that the equipment is so good that even the lower end bows are still really good bows compared to even what they were 10, 15 years ago. So I would say the most important thing is getting something that fits you, no matter, youth, adult. I know for kids, people sometimes think, well, I'll get this, this youth archer a bow that they can grow into, but trying to learn with a bow that doesn't fit you is just not going to be enjoyable or progressive for a beginner. So I would just say get to a shop with a bow technician who can set you up and fit you properly. And you can make any, you don't need to have the most expensive bow to get a good fit. It's just a matter of taking the time to set it up and get the right gear that's going to work for, every shooter type thing.
That's sorry, Mark. That's sort of like any other equipment, like a pair of shoes, a pair of skates, pair of baseball cleats, a glove that's too big or too small. I know it costs maybe a little extra money. You don't get those extra years as kids are growing, but I think that's a very good point. Shoot what you're going to use, right?
Yeah, and the nice thing about bows is now that a lot of them are adjustable as you grow. So you set it up, and then kids grow so fast that every 6 months, maybe they need a half inch of draw length or whatever it might be. Depends how fast they grow and how old they are. But a lot of the bows are adjustable, so you can stick with it from low poundage all the way up to hunting poundage or tournament poundage.
I did a video, I think it was 2 years ago, just a short little video, because I get asked that because I'm with Cabela's. I get asked that all the time about, well, and my son Ryan and myself, we do tournament archery as well. And I will say that when you're older and you want to be better competing, there is some advantage to some really good equipment. But I did a video basically showcasing the bow that my son won Canadian Nationals with in 3D. And it was his hunting bow. It was exactly what you're saying, Erin. It was adjustable. It was a diamond, actually. And it was super adjustable. And I wanted to prove the point that, 1 week he won Canadian National 3Ds with it. And then he went and got his first bear with that same bow. So I wanted to just say that exactly what you were saying, that you don't have to be overly expensive to be successful. Now, I will say when you kind of make that step into real competitive tournament archery, you can get very technical, Darren, just like you were saying about the equipment. If you do spend a lot of money and the equipment can help you, but like I said, Ryan proved it by shooting and winning a gold medal at nationals with his hunting bow. So I tell everybody the same as you, Erin. I say, start out with something that's so adjustable that you can grow into. Doesn't matter if you're an adult too, because the adjustability comes with the draw length. So, or not with the draw length, with your poundage. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and I mean, another thing that I have found has helped me, and I still do it, like I try to shoot the same bow as much as possible. Like I know a lot of people want to have a different bow and a totally different setup for 3D, for target, for hunting, for field, and all of a sudden they have all these bows and they think they need to invest, $15,000 into these setups. But really, if you get one bow that fits you great and you can shoot it and you shoot it well, I would say just stick with one. Like a lot of my friends, and I've done it in the past, is just take my 3D bow and take everything off it and set it up in the fall for my hunting bow, because I've shot thousands of arrows through it and I know I'm confident with it. And I think confidence is everything. And it goes the other way too. If you have a bow that doesn't fit you and you're just struggling away and you're you're getting frustrated, maybe it's time to make a change. That's what I wish someone had told me earlier, is you kind of, once you get to a certain point, when something is not working for you or whether it's you. So I guess it depends what level you're at, but shooting with the same bow as much as possible works pretty well.
So Erin, if somebody's watching this and they want to go purchase a bow for themselves or for a child or something like that, what advice would you give them to when they look at the racks of bows that they could get at? I mean, I know you said something adjustable, but like what can you give them as advice that will help them make a determination? Like, is a $200 bow good or an $800 bow good?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends kind of what they intend to do with it. So if it's a 3D bow that they're looking for, which we have a lot of here in Saskatchewan, you know, when things are more normal. So a 3D bow can easily swap back and forth into hunting bow. You could shoot some target with it. So for a multi-purpose bow, maybe something that is in that kind of, you know, like 30 to 35 axle to axle range. And then in terms of price point, it really just depends whether you buy used or new or what brand and, you know, how fancy of components you want to put on it. But yeah, I would just think about what you want to do with it, because if you go and buy a 40-inch axle to axle bow, that's probably not going to be realistic to take hunting. So then you're going to be looking at either buying a different bow to hunt with, or you know, have a bunch of different setups. So
I want to talk a little bit about grassroots, Erin. I would
okay.
probably say that that's kind of where I am with the National Archery in the Schools program. I have a lot of kids of the last number of years since we brought the program to Canada shooting. We've seen our youth numbers really go up in our area because of the National Archery in the Schools program. Can you
Right.
tell me a little bit about grassroots and development, and maybe some doors that has opened, you know, have opened for you, and some things that you've accomplished? We talked a little bit about that at the start, but you know, the people you've been seeing, the places you've gone, how does that all start for you? And kind of explain to some of our crowd, you know, things you've seen, traveled, and so forth.
Yeah, so I was lucky when I started shooting local tournaments. There was quite a few local guys who knew, you know, who I should talk to, or who has traveled and shot on the national team and stuff like that. So then I got linked up with you, Darren, and Nolan at the Parkland Outdoor Show, which was my first actual sponsor. That was really great to attend the show and meet people and kind of learn how sponsorship works and that type of thing. And then as things progressed, I was approached by a lot of kind of 4-H clubs and smaller archery clubs that I was able to go there and shoot with the kids, and, you know, just really work on structural things with any type of bow, and just sort of share moments in archery and work on some skills as well. So that's probably been one of the coolest things, is working with different groups. I've got to spend a little bit of time in our northern communities, working with cultural camps, and yeah, lots of 4-H clubs and youth programs and stuff like that. And then traveling to the States has been pretty cool as well. There's lots of different just kind of like events at the bigger tournaments where kids and youth can come and shoot with the pros, and there's all sorts of different events that we get to sort of be a part of. So that's been pretty special, and I'm missing it pretty bad.
Yeah. We're not able to, right now, we're not able to participate in any extracurricular at the school level as well. So that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt. We don't know yet about archery. We've started some in phys ed classes, social distancing. So we're not sure what's going to happen right now with the archery park, is we've canceled all extracurricular at the moment. So yeah, we're waiting to see what that happens too. So
yeah, I think a lot of people are shooting in their houses, which is great, but I think next maybe we should do a seminar on patching drywall, all the holes that we've all shot in our walls.
Yeah. I actually I set up a range from my far wall into this room here, and I right behind my chair. You can't see it, but I've got my son hit one right through the drywall.
Yeah, I have lots of holes in my drywall.
Hey, Erin. So on the equipment side of it, what's your recommendation to somebody that doesn't have the experience like you do with setting up your bow, cutting your arrows? Because I mean, that stuff really matters, but I think lots of people don't understand the importance of proper equipment setup.
Yeah, I would definitely say find someone at your local shop who you trust to work on your equipment if you're not quite ready to learn, because it does take a long time to learn. So of course I would say learn your own stuff, understand it, and figure out how to adjust it yourself. But as you're first learning, it can be a bit overwhelming. So find a mentor who knows everything about the technical aspects of your bow and your release and what arrows are the best for you, and then do your research as you kind of learn and grow and develop your skills. Then once you kind of understand how your bow works and how your release works and your sight and everything, then you can start to try things and figure out what works for you. But when you don't know exactly what you're adjusting or how it works, you can get yourself into trouble pretty easily. So find someone and do your research, until you get to the point where you're comfortable adjusting your own stuff or building your own arrows, because it just takes time. Be patient with it.
I think in that little showcase that we did of you on the Saskatchewan 3D Facebook page, I think one of the questions that was asked of you was who sets your equipment up, and it was you replied by saying you do. And I think that's awesome, because not that you can't do it, but being a pro, I thought that you would have somebody that would basically hand you your stuff because they would have all the tools. And I thought that was pretty impressive that you say, no, I set my own stuff up.
So the trouble is that, one is kind of where we live. Like, I'm an hour drive from any type of archery shop, really. And then the issue I have is that when we fly so much, or even just traveling to tournaments, and I can't take that person with me, if I don't understand what is going on with my bow, then I'm kind of in trouble if something does change. And let's be honest, we're still dealing with strings and sticks, really. So things are going to move and things change, and you need to know how to make an adjustment. So when I get to Georgia and something's just not quite right, I need to know how to make an adjustment so that I can at least be competitive. So that's kind of what motivated me to learn, but it took me a lot of time and a lot of teaching from other people, and just a lot of struggling to truly understand how to do it properly. So yeah, it can be frustrating because there are so many small adjustments you can make that actually turn out to be larger than you expect. So I would say, if you're going to play around with things, maybe just find someone to ask, like ask myself or any of the pros or your local bow technician at the shop. Like, just ask someone and say, hey, if I adjust this, what might happen?
Let's talk a little bit about females in the sport. The sport has really taken off archery wise to like pro level and beyond. Let's talk a little bit about being a female in the sport and how that's come along, because there's more and more ladies shooting as well at these tournaments now. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's come a long way, and the women's class is getting more and more competitive scores wise. So it always used to be, like, oh, she shot great for a woman, but now we see it like even in the pro events where once in a while a woman will shoot, an equal or better score than the top men. And really that is fantastic when you think about physiology and the differences between men and women. And everyone, like, I hear all the time people say, oh, well, if you're shooting the same weight and the same setup, then you should be able to shoot the same score. But people kind of disregard the fact that men and women are not composed of the same material. We literally have different, physiological makeups. So I think we can sort of get discouraged when we're always competing with the men and the scores tend to be higher. So I think instead of just getting frustrated, it's important to remember that men and women are made differently, and just compete with the women in your class, see how it's going, come and show up. And just, there's so many more women showing up all the time that it doesn't feel like you're the odd person out anymore, or it doesn't feel like a male dominated type sport. I think it's starting to feel like everybody's welcome, age, gender, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Just bring your bow and shoot. So, and I think it's important to go to some local events and get to know people, because you might just meet a group of 4 or 5 new friends who want to go shoot, and then all of a sudden you have all kinds of practice buddies and options, and then you might be inclined to invite some more women to come shoot. And I think that's how we get more and more women to come, is just, you never know who might be interested.
Right.
How do you find taking on that mentor role, or that role of a sort of an elite female archery in Canada. I think back to some of the bigger sports, and I mean, I'm not putting you on a pedestal here by any means, Erin. I don't want to put that on you, but I think of hockey, for example, and the big Canadian athletes that everybody looks up to, and or golfers. Golfing's probably a better analogy. When Mike Weir, for example, won the Masters, it just blew up in Canada for archery.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do see this happening with you, Erin, in Canada, and with on the female side, is they see you competing kind of on an island, this Canadian taking on the US and the world. How do you feel about taking on that role as a mentor for all of us in Canada?
I had some pretty cool things planned for this off season. I was hoping to do like a lot more traveling around in Canada and do seminars and do ladies only kind of events and that type of thing. And unfortunately, we haven't got there yet, but I hope in the future to be more present in Canada and actually travel around and do some events and kind of just get people together. I think that's the biggest thing, is taking that first step to get people together, and maybe then people will realize it's not as scary as maybe it sometimes seems. It does often feel like we are sort of isolated up here because everyone's so far apart, and there's not a lot of, we just don't have the population as some of the bigger centers do, especially here in Saskatchewan. So we would have to all unite in the same spot to have, a shoot of a few thousand people. We would need literally every archer in the province. So I think just, purposefully traveling around, getting small groups of women together, or all archers for that matter. But that's kind of what I'd like to do maybe next, if we're ever allowed to travel again, is just spend more time in Canada and do more events and gather people together and just get people started, because sometimes that's all it takes, is just, one event and then they're hooked, or one day of shooting, or they meet one new friend who's into archery, and sometimes that's all it takes. So that would be really fun.
Take somebody to walk that path to start with, right? And everybody will follow.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. I want to talk a little bit about your training regimen, Erin. Obviously, with the different competitions you shoot, there's some distance involved with targets and what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do being a Canadian in wintertime? Like, is there somewhere you can shoot and practice? I know, speaking with Nolan Johnson, our buddy, when he goes to like Vegas or some of these other events, he doesn't have very much room to practice. He's got a fairly new house that he set up a range in there, but he's limited to the amount of space he has. So what are some tips that you do to practice, or you just go with what you got, and when you show up those events, that's just wing it?
Yeah, I mean, I hate saying that I just wing it, but sometimes, I mean, here in Lloydminster, we have a beautiful indoor 50-yard range. So that's awesome for just shooting and sighting in and all that stuff normally when we can shoot. So yeah, that works great for sighting in, but for the long range stuff, it's pretty tough. Like, I will go and shoot outside. I'll freeze, or I'll light a fire. This is pretty redneck, but I'll light a big fire and shoot beside it if I have to in the winter to shoot some targets. But in terms of judging, that's probably the hardest thing, because even I have tried judging outside in the snow, but when you go from looking at the snow and everything is white, and then you go to, Alabama, and you're right by the Gulf and everything's green, it just doesn't look the same. The perception is different. So I would say the yardage judging is the hardest part, because distance wise, you can kind of get there early enough to make sure your marks are good. And as long as you've been practicing aiming and doing drills to accommodate for that, that doesn't seem as bad. But yeah, the yardage judging, that's a tough one. I try to usually go a little bit early so I can acclimatize and make sure, all my gear isn't changing a lot with the humidity, and just sort of adjust to being back outside after we've been indoors all year. That's the toughest part. But once the weather's nice here, then it's totally fine. We have some of the windiest days ever here in Saskatchewan. So that part's good. You get lots of windy practice, and nothing really seems as bad as Saskatchewan weather.
So Erin,
yeah.
I know you do lots of seminars, or you started doing that, like you're saying. What is probably the most common question you'd get at one of your seminars when you get people to come there? Like what seems to be the common theme?
I think honestly, a lot of archers get hung up on aiming because they say, oh, I can't hold on my target, or I can't hold steady, or I have I keep getting stuck low, or I have this movement or that movement. And so I think a lot of people over stress about aiming and worrying about the movement, that the rest of their shot execution sometimes suffers. So I would say that's the number one worry. And then by the time we're done the seminar, they have a million other things to worry about. So maybe the aiming becomes less important. So yeah, that's probably the number one thing.
Like, is it fair to say that in archery, the better you get, it almost gets more difficult because you start to overthink things? Because I think of buddies that come to 3D shoots that all they ever do is shoot their hunting rigs, and they do very well. And it's surprising that how well they do, because they just get up there and they just pull back and let her go. Whereas I found, like, especially in the last 5 years, I've really gotten, into target archery and into 3D and trying to get on the technical side of it. I think I've taken, 2 steps back and 1 forward because of what you're saying about the aiming and stuff like that. Do you find that happens? Like, the people that are just have that natural ability, they grab their hunting setup and they just do very well.
Yeah, for sure. And once you get to a certain point, like, it gets to the level where everybody is capable of hitting the target every single time, hitting what they're aiming at, but then it becomes very mental. So then it becomes about managing the stress and the nerves and, just everything to do with competition. So you get to a certain point, and yes, you need to learn the technical aspects and you have to be able to execute the shot, but eventually you have to get your mental game under control, and especially at the higher levels, that's kind of how you win, is whoever can manage the mental side of things the best and just shoot their bow and not get too wound up about it.
I know there's lots of high performance athletes that have to have a special meal, or you put baby powder on their hockey stick, or do you have any little things that you do to get your, like, either calm your nerves or get yourself ready, or maybe there's a pre-shoot something or other you do, or any superstitions?
Yeah, not really, because I found with traveling so much that all of your sort of routine just gets thrown out the window as soon as you are late, or your bow doesn't show up, or your suitcase doesn't show up with your special item in there. So I don't have anything too crazy. I do normally chew gum while I shoot, which I know a lot of people say you shouldn't do, but I chew gum every time I shoot. That's probably about the only one. Yeah, nothing too crazy.
Okay.
Hey, Erin, so Darren asked you, and we kind of got off it, on the training aspect or the practicing aspect. What would you recommend somebody? How often should they have that bow in their hand, regardless if they're hunting or if they're shooting tournaments?
Yeah, I think, like, take whatever the number of arrows you need to shoot on competition weekend, and then never shoot like more than double that in a practice session, is kind of how, if you're going to shoot like an 8-month season, and I'm talking in season. So once you're in shooting shape, if you're shooting a 30 arrow scoring round, your practice round should be, 60 arrows, and then maybe divide your practice into multiple sessions per day if possible. So, okay, say I'm going to shoot 3 scoring rounds in a day. I shoot that in 2 or 3 different sessions so that I'm not shooting 100 arrows in, an hour and a half type thing. So I would say break it up. But then if you're shooting FIDA, so if you're going to shoot a 720, that's 72 scoring arrows, you better be in shape, because you might have to shoot a makeup end, or, you might end up shooting 100 arrows that day. So maybe your practice day 3 days a week is 200 arrows. So it just depends. Like, you need to be in shape, but I would say for sure 1 full day completely off every week, usually after competition, and then a really easy practice day right before competition. So kind of structure your week so that maybe if scoring is on Saturday, Sunday, you have a light practice day Friday. Thursday, maybe you're traveling and you basically have an off day so that your body feels fresh for practice Friday. And then, Wednesday and Tuesday are your heavy type days, and Monday's a rest day. I think with archery, because it's not quite as physical as some of our other sports, a lot of people just think, oh, I can shoot all day, every day, and I don't need to rest. But you just start to become so overused in certain areas of your body and your mind, and then frustration creeps in, and I think people forget that the nervous system needs to recover. Even though we're not, body checking and jumping and all those really physical things, the nervous system still needs to rest, and I think that's very undervalued in archery. So yeah, I would say just shooting the volume of arrows that you need to shoot to be in shape for the tournament, so okay, I'll be strong for every shot. And then after that, I would say quality over quantity from there on out.
And what about somebody, Erin, that's say maybe just a hunter? How often should they learn their bow and shoot their bow to get in, say, a hunting shape?
Yeah, so hunting, ideally you're making one good shot. So I would say shoot, if it was me, I would shoot maybe 30 arrows in a practice session, but I would shoot them, 3 arrows at a time, 3 good shots, so that if you're used to making 3 good shots, you should be able to make 1 good shot, that kind of thing. And making sure I'm super comfortable in different shooting positions and not just standing there in a unrealistic hunting position, right? So I think hunting wise, a lot of people forget to shoot in all their gear. So they shoot in a t-shirt and then they go and get in a tree with 17 layers on them, and then they try to draw their bow, and it becomes pretty nasty. So making sure you can shoot in your gear, that's a mistake that I've made many times.
And same thing with shooting in different weather conditions as well, Erin, right? Like that has to weigh into that as well.
Oh yeah, and it's just like really trying to get yourself ready for whatever it might be that you're training for. So if it's hunting, be ready for anything, weather, shooting positions, lighting is another one for hunting. And then for tournaments, being ready to compete. So if you have anybody that you can compete against in practice, that's going to be more beneficial than shooting by yourself for sure.
Hey, Erin, one question that I've discussed with people in the past, and I want to get it because you're a pro. I think there's a lot of frustration with amateur shooters when they see shooters like yourself, and you're not really an example of this because you've been with Matthews for quite a while. But people get frustrated at the amateur level when they see the pros changing manufacturers, changing arrows. And I know that sponsorship plays a big part of that, but what can you tell just an average person about when it comes to selecting their equipment, when it comes to a brand name? Now, I'm not asking you to say this one's the best, but people say all the time, oh, this person was with PSE or you know what I mean? And then now all of a sudden they're with Elite or vice versa. Why? I think people understand that it's better to go to the other one. That's not necessarily true, is it?
Right. So what I find interesting with professional archery is that when other athletes, so say a hockey player gets traded to a different team or takes a different contract, nobody ever thinks anything of it. That's just the way it is because it's their job, right? But when archers switch companies, everyone thinks that, there was something wrong with their other equipment or this or that. But honestly, once you get to the professional level, it's just like any other professional sport, and it's your job. So you're negotiating contracts and you are trying to set yourself up the best possible way for success. Obviously with equipment you feel like you can win with, and financially you can get to all the tournaments and be where you need to be. So I think it's important to remember that those shooters are just doing their job. And believe me, those top guys that are, are switching companies, they could win with any bow from any company anywhere in the world. They are talented, and they are just going wherever is going to be most successful for them. And so if it was me just starting out, I would just go shoot every bow that was in my budget and pick whichever one I think feels the best for me. And then that's when you can approach the pros or whoever it is and say, hey, I'm working on this brand of bow, and I realize you shoot for them. What are you doing to maybe tune this, or I can't get this to work? And that's what the pros are there for. So they know the equipment better than anybody else. And no matter what kind of brand you go with, there's somebody out there who is the best of the best that can help you make it work. So I guess just go and get something that you think feels awesome, because all the equipment is so good now. Like, it really doesn't matter what you get. It's all good.
I know you talked about shooting and conditioning yourself to a tournament or how many rounds you're going to shoot. What about physical conditioning or mental conditioning? Like, do you have a workout regimen? Do you practice, your mental aspect of the game with something different? Is there a sport or something else you enjoy that helps you with archery to work on those things, or exercise? Do you do any of those things as part of your regimen as a pro shooter?
Yes, I do lots. I go to physiotherapy once a month and work with a super high level sports therapist, because I have some old kind of nagging injuries from other sports. And we just develop a program to keep me injury free and feeling awesome. So usually I kind of stack my days so that my heaviest shooting days with the largest amount of arrows will also be my heaviest gym days, so that my the bulk of my work is on the same days, and then my in between days that are lighter with less shooting is also lighter in the gym. So it might be intervals or cardio or that type of thing. And I do try to stay in pretty good shape to be strong and steady, but also to keep my aerobic fitness up so that my heart rate can go lower, ideally, so that the lower my resting heart rate is, then hopefully it will be skyrocketing less when I'm nervous. So I'd say in the off season, probably 3 strength days a week. And then in between, on the 2 days, I would do some type of conditioning type training, and then 2 off days.
Okay.
And what about your mental health?
Yeah, so I have done quite a bit of studying, like reading different books and working with mental coaches. And I just have things that I take maybe like I would say 25% of my practice time to just sit down without a bow and do mental training stuff, whether it's journaling or visualization, that type of thing. And at the start, I found that very difficult, and I was really struggling with it. And then I read the book With Winning in Mind from Lanny Basham, and that really helped me to understand sort of why we're doing it and that type of thing. And then just speaking with good mental training coaches, and each one might have something that works for you. I know that the same concepts don't always work for everybody because our minds are all different, but finding something that works with you and practicing that mental routine in practice, so that when you get to a tournament, you have something to think about that you're used to keeping your mind occupied with. Otherwise, the pressure and the stress just can make you mentally fall apart.
Well, no, Erin, I know that you got to go shortly, so we'll try to keep it brief here. But a tip that I want to get to steal from Erin McGladdery is, because you're a success on the pro circuit and being a champion, you admitted to it. The hardest thing is judging distance. What does Erin McGladdery do to succeed? Like, how could you give somebody a tip right now? If we were shooting tournaments, what could you say that would help them?
Okay, first thing is to get yourself a good rangefinder that you trust, that is always within, a yard of any other kind of rangefinders that you test. Like, make sure you get one that's consistent. So that's step 1. And then step 2, if you don't have any 3D targets, you're going to have to learn how to judge random objects and just distance in general. So, like the depth perception. And so some a really great guy told me once to just find what 20 yards looks like. So I would take my rangefinder and I would find 20 yards. I'd walk up to, say, a power pole or a tree or a mailbox or a cow, anything. Just walk up and try to get 20 yards away. You could even start at 10 if you've never ever judged yards. So find 20. And if you can get within a yard or half a yard every time, then move to 30 or 25, kind of however you want your increments to go. So I did that a lot, until I could consistently kind of get 40 yards away from something. And then another thing I did that worked great was I would set out objects on the lawn every 10 yards, like say 5-gallon pails works really good, and set them so you can kind of stagger them and see what the distance between 10 yards looks like at each increment. So the difference between 20 and 30 looks a lot bigger than the difference at 40 to 50, right? So learning how those rolls look to your eye, and then if you have targets, setting them up in a pattern where you can see the difference between what a deer looks like at 40 and 50. Like that distance doesn't look very far to me when I'm looking at them. So then when you're on the 3D range and you're saying, okay, I know he's more than 40, but I know it doesn't look much further to 50. So then I can make an educated guess about how far it is. So that's kind of how I judge. That's really different than, the people who have the targets and they have every single target. They've got maps and notes and all these tendencies. But if you don't have targets, you got to learn how to just judge distance in general. So that's what I would start with, and learn what those rolls between 10 yards looks like. And that will help you so much.
Excellent.
That's a great point.
Darren, do you got anything left for Erin?
Well, I just a comment. I'm an admirer of yours. I think you're doing great things, and I know the Parkland Outdoor Show and Expo is very proud to have you wear our patch on your attire and represent us. I want to thank you for the success you've had and the success you're going to continue to have. I know that, it's somebody, I listened to Darren Fleury's podcast, and he always references 10,000 hours, and you have to be the best at something, you have to put in like 10,000 hours of something over and over again. So, congratulations up to this point. And every time, we touch base, I always am very curious of how you're doing and how things are going for you. So continued success. And there's a lot of people that are behind you, supporting you. So all the best to you, and hopefully 2021 with the new year, and you can get back out there. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's pretty cool to come home and hopefully be able to go and visit different communities and just get more people going with archery. I hope that that's something that the future holds. So we'll see. Hopefully the COVID will get under control here soon.
Well, Erin, just like Darren, I thank you. You got to know that we're all following you when you're at your tournaments. It is kind of nice to, with the internet and with the coverage that archery gets, it's actually there's fantastic coverage of archery in the United States. And so we follow you. We're proud that you're Canadian, of your accomplishments. And before you're ever a pro, you're a very, very successful Canadian archer on the provincial level as well as the national level. So I mean, if anybody's thinking that she just went pro, no, you cut your teeth going to provincials and all that kinds of stuff. I'm going to let you go, but if there's one thing that you would say to lady archers and to new archers to get into the sport, I hate putting you on the spot, but what would you say to them to make them make the step to join a fantastic sport like archery?
Yeah, I would say just go for it, because you never know what might happen. It could change your life. Maybe you'll develop a new passion, whether it's bow hunting or target archery or 3D, anything might happen. Or maybe it will become a form of kind of therapy for you, or stress relief, a new hobby, anything. The nice thing about archery is you can sort of shoot your whole life, unless there are some major injuries, but it's kind of a lifetime thing, and it's a family event. The whole family can go, and it's just awesome. So whatever you're scared of, don't be.
Well, for archery, I got into tournament archery relatively late. But I also have a son that's grows up, and he just is now moving into the cadet series, and meaning he is now going to shoot the same distance as me. So there's not many sports in the world that you can shoot at a very competitive level that you can participate, a dad and a son at the same competition level. And so for me, it's been like that forever. Ever since Ryan started shooting archery, I've been very proud of the fact that, hey, we're going to the same competition. We might shoot different levels, but we're still shooting the same targets, and we're still doing it as a family. And so now that he's old enough that he's joining, to 50 yards, basically, it's going to be a family competition, but it's exactly that. It's a lifetime sport that you can participate with your family. There's nothing like it.
And you know what I just want to say too, is that there are a ton of knowledgeable people in Saskatchewan and in all of Canada. So if anyone is struggling and can't find someone in their area, I'm sure there probably is someone. You may just not know them. So don't be afraid to, reach out to anyone in archery and say, hey, this is where I live. Do you know anybody who might be able to help me here? And there's a good chance one of us probably does. So I know I had a lot of people help me with this and that and encourage me, or, take me to tournaments and whatever it might be. And without those people, I never would have went. So don't be frightened to just reach out, because most of us would love to have someone new, come along or help, get their bow set up, whatever it might be.
I think the camaraderie in archery, like you could have a catastrophic malfunction on the line, and the whole place will come together to help you get back going. It's just amazing what people do in archery.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, sure. Erin, I'm going to let you go. I know you've got to get going. We've been, like I said at the beginning, we wanted to get you on the program for a long time, and it just hasn't worked out. Thank you so much for everything you do. I hope to attend one of your seminars one of these days when they're a little closer to home. Take care of yourself, get back shooting. And I know Darren and I will be watching, and hopefully we'll see you at the Parkland Outdoor Show and Expo next time. And thank you very much, and good luck in the upcoming season when it starts.
Thank you guys so much. Take care.
Darren.